The Last Showgirl, of course, is a movie that came out recently to some very interesting reviews, to say the least. Now, of course, the reviews are 70% by Metacritic, 6 out of 10 by IMDb. Unfortunately, Google has not put out anything yet, considering that the release date is supposedly January 10th. How did I watch it? I do not know. But besides that, Rotten Tomatoes, of course, since it's supposedly releasing in a month, only has critics, and that has it 80%. So basically, it has everything. It has 60, 80, and 70. What did I give it? I fit right in there. I give it a 5 out of 10, to be honest. So, of course, the essential plot revolves around one older woman, that being Shelley, who must deal with the fact that the show, let's just say a nudie show on the Las Vegas Strip, is closing after being there for essential decades. She has to deal with the fact that what she's going to do afterwards, the hardship of being on one of those shows, and there are some other people, right? You have Jody and Mariani, who are younger women in the industry, and you have her essential best friend being Annette, right? Not to mention Dave Bautista is also here, right? But besides that, let's get with the non-spoiler review. It's very confusing. You know, they try to make it seem like Shelley is some person that just made some minor mistakes and all that stuff. And supposedly they try to make her seem like a victim. I say supposedly because I can't tell with the movie. Sometimes they make her seem like an irredeemable monster. The other one is like, oh no, she just made a few mistakes. I can't tell. Dave Bautista, I know I sound like a hater considering the last time I talked about Dave Bautista, but this dude is so one note. He only has one gear in terms of acting. Luckily, throughout the film, it makes sense, right? It fits the character that he's playing, but when it's time to show some emotions, he can't. Or at least when he does, you could clearly tell he's like not his strong suit, if that makes any sense. There are also some other tiny plot points that feel like it should have been explored more. To be honest, I think it should have been focused on at least two people instead of one, because it wasn't interesting the first one, but the second one seemed a little bit more interesting. That was Jody, which I guess you could say is a little bit of spoiler, but it doesn't matter, right? It doesn't really change because they don't really explore it, right? But where she essentially says that she left her home to be part of this industry, thinking that there was some type of safety net. Hey, if I ever want to go back home, I could. She tries to call her parents, they don't answer. And she's scared, obviously, thinking that she's not going to be able to go home. I feel like that was very something that could have been executed very nicely, made it a lot more deeper. But they didn't. It was just something they brought up and then they just didn't get brought up again, right? And then there's a bunch of other ones, like obviously Shelley and her friend being older, obviously not being accepted in the industry anymore, obviously slowly getting replaced by younger people, if not already. One little nitpick is that her daughter, Hannah, is in college, right? She's supposedly 22. I'm sorry, I don't mean it I don't really want to be disrespectful, but she does not look 22. She looks like upper 20s, at least like 28. You could tell. But whatever, it doesn't matter. But besides that, it's a very confusing movie with some weird cinematography, which I get. It's not one of those. It's one of those movies, makes you, I guess, think, right? And sometimes Shelley's performance, it doesn't sell me on, it doesn't really convince me. I don't want to say it's not good, but there's like certain scenes where it's supposed to be seeming like she's falling apart. I just don't feel it at all. But then again, you could say it's just not my cup of tea, which fair enough. Every movie you watch it will not be your cup of tea. So obviously there are gonna be some movies that you don't like that other people love. Obviously, seeing how vastly different the ratings are, I guess I am part of them. I'm part of the population that does not like the movie. But besides that, that's essentially the end of the spoiler-free review. It's a very confusing movie that obviously you could tell that they're trying to make it emotional and deep. I just don't feel it. Yeah, I just don't feel it. And it's a short movie, but for some reason it feels longer. It's an hour and 30 minutes, but it feels longer, right? Could be a good thing, could be a bad thing, depending on who you ask. But for me, I think it's a bad thing, right? Feels like it drags on a little bit too much, which is weird because it's an hour and 30 minutes, right? But besides that, that's the end of the spoiler-free review. Enough dilly-dallying. That's enough of the spoiler-free review. Time for the spoiler review. To people who probably did get the chance to watch it, I don't know. But here's the thing. But of course, yeah, she was part of the Razzle Dazzle crew for decades, to the point where she was actually basically the cover girl of the entire show back when she was younger. And yeah, she has to deal with the fact that she now has to get, I guess you could say, a regular job. But the thing is, you kind of don't feel bad for her when they bring up her daughter, because her daughter literally says, and she does not deny, that she was basically obsessed with the show, right? And how she basically didn't leave her, but I assume that's what they said. But basically, she stopped paying attention to her and like sent her off to a different family. I don't know. Someone might need to correct me on that. And the fact that she said that, oh, sometimes she would leave me in the car with the game so she could do 2 shows a night. That's bad parenting. And you know what the end of the movie is? She says, oh, all mothers aren't saints. Everyone has their problems. Yeah, but you left your child in the car to do a nudie show. And not to mention Eddie, or Dave Bautista's character, he promptly calls her up for that. But like I said, Dave Bautista, I don't know what's up. I don't know the thing, but for someone that's supposed to be calling out a horrible parent, he does not do a good job, right? But basically, oh, by the way, he's the dad of Hannah, right? He had a thing. Hannah was born. He wasn't part of her life. That doesn't matter, right? But basically says you could have just worked a regular job, like a retail job, a fast food job, which probably may or may not have paid more, considering as the older she got, the less money she got, because obviously she wasn't the center of attention for the show, obviously, being an older woman. To the point where Hannah even says that all she is just some background actor to the show. She's not even the main thing anymore, right? So it's like, well, damn. I thought that the thing you left me for was, as she says, worth it. It wasn't. It wasn't at all. Not to mention, like I said, she says that she's the background person, right? But at the end of the movie, she's in the middle of it. Like, she's the main attraction of the last show, which I get it. I guess you could say it's the last show, so the girl that's been there the entire time is now the center of attention. But you know, another weird thing is that Hannah appears in the last show, but she disappears like she's a ghost sometimes and gets replaced by different people. What the hell is that about? What is this supernatural thing that's going on? I don't get it, right? But one thing they do well is, of course, since Shelley's older, she does not get the newer version of nudie shows on the Las Vegas Strip, of course, as they're slowly getting replaced. It becomes a little bit more sexual, less of the theatrics, as you could say. And so obviously she doesn't like it. They do a pretty good job at that. Unfortunately, that's not enough to really make me like the film. There's like maybe 2 funny bits. I don't know. They try to make it seem like a drama, but it's so confusing. I don't get it. Because there's random scenes where she starts dancing, right? Like ballerina dance. I don't know what that's about. I don't know. I feel like it's one of those movies that if you don't catch on in the first like half hour, you're going to be confused the entire movie. Which I guess happened to me, right? But it is so confusing. They're trying to make it seem so dramatic. Don't get me wrong. There are certain bits that really do seem dramatic. Especially when Shelley attempts to find a different job with a different nudie show. And then obviously he calls her out saying, not calls her out, but he basically says, yeah, we're not going to hire you because you're old and you're no longer pretty. And obviously that pisses her off. That's a pretty good scene, right? But I don't get it. I don't get the movie. I don't get the movie. I'm supposed to feel sad for her, but she's a horrible mom and all that stuff. She's her supposed friends, that being the younger people, she doesn't really support in their journey of finding another job, right? And her best friend is a gambling addict, right? Which, to be fair, obviously is supposed to be this dysfunctional thing. No one's perfect and all that stuff, but I don't know what the hell her problem was, to be honest. She works as like server in the casinos where she gets tips and all that stuff. But one thing they do well, which unfortunately doesn't happen a lot, it only happens like the first quarter of the movie, is when they're all together. They're all having a laugh, talking. I like it. It's pretty funny there and pretty enjoyable. Obviously, it's not supposed to be enjoyable since it's a drama. It's just, it felt nice, but it was the beginning of the movie, so I was like, damn, downhill from here then. But yeah, there's nothing more to say. It's just a confusing movie to me. You know, it's supposed to be the aftermath of her show ending, so she has to deal with that fact and how she's gonna move forward. But she doesn't want to move forward, which I get it. That's the whole point of the movie, right? I guess you could say that she's stuck in her ways. But this supposedly is supposed to be a happy ending. So what is it? Is she a bad person or not? Why she get a good ending? I don't get it. Like, either have her lose everything or not make her seem as bad as a person. You know, the way she is, you would think that she would end up on the streets or something, right? Which is unfortunate. No one wants that, right? But in this type of movie, you would expect that would happen, right? She doesn't want to move forward. She doesn't want to get a retail job. She doesn't want to do that. She wants to continue doing nudie shows. But the nudie shows don't want her because she's older. So why did she get a happy ending? It's because why? You know, I don't get it, but I get it. You know what? The one good thing I'll say is that the frustration that the characters have, it feels believable. The way that they act, you know, during like the production of the show, obviously before they go on stage, it feels believable. It feels like an actual, I guess you could say, work environment. But everything outside of that, it just, I don't know, it just doesn't work for me. So, to be honest, I get all these reviews. I get why people would think about all these reviews. I would get the 6 out of 10. I would get the 70%. I would even get the 80%. But unfortunately for me, I would have to give it a 5 out of 10. I'm just confused. So to anyone who is unfortunately watching, obviously this is a spoiler review, so most people who haven't watched it are already gone. But if you're still watching this, if you have one of those, like I said, subscriptions where you could just watch a free movie, I feel like that's the only, me personally, that's the only reason why I would recommend it, is if you just have those subscriptions where you just get to watch free movies, like, I don't know, 3 times a week. I think that's the thing now. So I think, yeah, why not? You know, don't get me wrong, there's quite a bit of good movies coming out this week. I mean, literally Sonic and Mufasa and all that stuff is coming out. So obviously, maybe not the best front one, definitely not front runner, but still, you know, I personally wouldn't recommend it, but I would not be surprised if people liked it. I'm not surprised that people would like it. It's one of those movies, right? If you don't get it, you don't get it. If you get it, ooh, pure cinema, as people would say. Me personally, I didn't get it. But besides that, hope you enjoyed this review. Very confusing movie, but don't hate it. But besides that, like I said, hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll catch you in the next one.